Hello everyone. How are you guys doing this fine Sunday? It's fine. It's hot, it's humid, but not too shabby. Hopefully you guys are doing well this evening or afternoon, getting into the evening, depending on where you are. Or it might be Monday early morning, depending on where you guys are in the world. In any case, I'm your humble host, Sound Engraver. That was, of course, Sunkissed, my first track of my first album back in 2019, and you can check that out. I think you can check it out on my website. I might have some technical issues right now on my website, but it's soundengraver.com just in case it does work. Let me take this banner off real quick. Let's see if you guys can hear me all right first. Audio sounds great, says my wonderful prof and my personal Superman, if I do say so myself. And then let's see if we can get the video up. Hopefully we won't have any technical shenanigans. Let's see. Video looks pretty good. Hopefully it'll stay that way. So welcome. We'll talk about some stories today. Yeah, it's true. I am a composer, and of course my channel should be dedicated to music, but I have a lot of different interests, and that's that pertains to art and stories. So for this Sunday, we will be talking about two Superman origin stories per se, even though one is called Secret Origin. But yeah, we'll be working with Superman Secret Origin first, which I highly recommend if you haven't. I know Andreas Hernandez, if he's in the chat, he loves it. And then Birthright. So both of these will be pretty, I hope, fairly comprehensive reviews. This is really coming off of just reading these two stories, so it's pretty fresh on my mind. So I thought, well, I don't have a topic to talk about. Let's talk about Superman. And then if we have time, we might touch on a Star Wars EU novel just for a little bit, because I have some good thoughts on that one too. But that all depends on time. So let's go ahead and get into the chat. And of course, my wonderful Superman is saying, looking clear and beautiful. Wonderful, wonderful. So let's go ahead and check out the first one who showed up, at least as far as today. Have a great show, Sound Engraver, with violins. Thank you, Big Al, my friend. I had a pin in just because of those violin emojis. My wonderful prof says, talk nerdy to me, my bride. Yeah, it should be pretty nerdy. My poor prof, like if I finish a really good book, I'll just really just want to start talking about it. And he might be in the middle of something, probably a movie or a game. And then usually these copies are his, so I return it over to his bookshelves. But I just want to just unload my thoughts. So Ghost Planet Inc., Ghost Planet Max Inc. 1.0. Good to have you. Brian Gilmartin says, a Superman comic review? This should be fun. I have 2 comic reviews. Private Eye says, hello there. And it's time, says Brian. Final Fantasy Fan is also with us, number 12. And Andreas, of course, I thought you'd be here. Finally, Sound Engraver is going to talk about good Superman comics. Yeah. Now, I will be candid with a few things regarding one of the stories. Because while I think both are pretty strong stories, I mean, especially Secret Origin, Birthright's a pretty strong story. I do have some thoughts on it. Some people might call it negative, or some people might call it critical, but I can't contain it. I have to express it. But all in all, very solid Superman story as well. So we'll get into that. Private Eye. This is worth just posting up right now. Not gonna lie, Prof. With a girl like that, I want to live that dream too. Yeah. And then Prof answers, someday I'll use my other 2 wishes, Private Eye. Yeah, so I mean, I think that's kind of where it comes from. Like I was interested in what Prof was interested. I mean, I would say no matter, Prof and I kind of talked about this a little bit without going into too much detail. If you're in a religious setting, kind of like with like the Catholic way of life, or even just the Christian, like Catholic or Protestant way of life, there could be like a pressure to marry quite young. I didn't marry until I was 36. I didn't marry anyone before that, and it was fine. That was just how it happened, because I wasn't seeking. But Prof was saying that there's a lot of pressure on young men to get married, within religious circles, and that's fine. if that's the calling, to start a family and all that. But we in our past, from our past, and then just with people we know now, um, we've seen people at church marry because of the pressure and because they want to get married. But then, like over time, like common interests go away. That and in a way that kind of happened with my own parents. And people will say, "Oh, well, as years go by, you're going to lose interest in, you're the shared common interests you have are going to go away." I don't think so, because I'm very, very much interested in a lot of things that Prof is interested, including Superman. But at the same time, there are things he likes that I won't be into. And the current day example right now is just Beetlejuice. It's not because I'm afraid to watch it. It's just not really interested in it. Maybe it'll, I'll be interested in later, a few years down the road. But I'm satisfied with the comics. I will start reading. I will probably read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein for the first time this year. I think that's going to be really important. I have a lot of Star Wars to get through too. But anyway, all that aside, is Private Eye just, just, I think, just find someone that has similar interests. That's all I have to say. Don't settle, is what I'm saying. Andreas Hernandez says, "Truth, justice, and the American way." American way. It is a merry thing. Can do. It's a merry can do attitude. I think I'll use that for something else. I don't know. All right. Let's see who else is in the stream. Ace Moa, good to see you. Personally, I found Birthright to be superior. Oh, wait, you're a channel member. I need to post up your comments. Jeff Johns stuff never really did it for me. Yeah, I mean, I will say Birthright is fairly strong. There are some things we'll talk about, some strong points, some other points that I don't know might have aligned with kind of the character of Superman. Let's see. Samuel says, "Sound great. We're going back to the War of the World topic. I now have read 2 adaptations of the War of the Worlds. The Orson Welles radio show. I need to listen to that. And the Marvel comic adaptation from the 70s. They were both really good." I didn't know Marvel had an adaptation back in the 70s. That's pretty cool. Spidey Rules says, I hate that I like Birthright considering who the writer is." Nathaniel, welcome. I don't know if you saw me talking about that animated film I mentioned last night. Oh, I commented right when Prof closed it, because I didn't see it until the very end of that stream. I never heard of that one. I'm sorry, Nathaniel. But if you talk about the genre or the premise, that's my question to you on the stream was, what was the premise on that animation? All right. Now, Ghost Planet, as far as Smallville, I don't know anything about Smallville. So I'm sorry for anyone in the chat who might be thinking I'll talk about the show. I don't know anything about that show. I'm sorry. But we are talking about more of the origin, kind of the coming of age, the growing pains, finding his feet in Metropolis. So these 2 stories are doing that. So, yeah. All right. Let's see. Like, you guys have a lot of comments. I have a feeling this stream will have a lot of comments because we're talking about Superman. So I kind of want to go right into it before going back into the chat. Now I'll be, this is a review, so things might come out honest, things might come out expected. We'll see, but it is an honest review. So I will get right into it. Let me just grab some water. All right, let's first start with the one I read first, Superman Secret Origin. Sorry about the glare. It's a very good cover. Obviously, this work, this face, you can see that Clark Kent going into the Superman gesture, the famous gesture we all know and love. Well, that obviously is paying homage to the Donner film and also Christopher Reeve. That's his face. I mean, that's a pretty good rendition, an animated rendition of his face. So I love that. It's a very colorful cover. You can see, you know instantly what's going to happen or what's going to play out. obviously with Lex Luthor. Sorry for the glare. And then also Lana. I really appreciate Lana as a character. Obviously, Lois Lane becomes Superman's love interest, and ultimately, they get married and have a kid. But I do appreciate Lana and her relationship to Clark Kent at the beginning. And we'll go right into it. I mean, there's not going to be any spoilers if you haven't seen, or I'll try not to show any pictures that would spoil anything. I'm not going to really, well, let's see. I forgot what I was going to say. No spoilers, just in case you haven't read it, because it's worth reading. But I do want to go into the trajectory, the sequence of events. We first start out with really, it's just Clark Kent. He's asking himself kind of the existential question. Let's see if I can find it first. Oh, I should talk about the artists first, or at least mention them. Okay, Jeff Johns, Gary Frank, and John Sybil, I think, is how you pronounce his last name. So this is a Jeff Johns story. So first of all, I love that opening page where, by the way, this is the left. Obviously, it's left, but it feels inverted with this mirror. Wonderful, wonderful page of both them as adults. Superman and his nemesis Lex Luthor, but then of course them growing up in Smallville. You could see like Clark Kent is just geeky and happy. This is a very happy depiction of Clark Kent and Superman in this book, and then kind of the stoic but also cold child that is Lex Luthor. I will say both of these stories, Secret Origin and then also Birthright, both are different stories when it comes to Lex Luthor's upbringing, like his relationship to Clark Kent, and maybe a little bit of difference with his father, but they both depict the elemental regarding Lex Luthor. He's not to be messed with. He thinks everyone as inferior. He's too good for Smallville. He wants to leave Smallville as fast as possible, and the passing of his father procures that opportunity for him. But anyway, going back into the beginning, it has this existential question like, why are you here? And it's Clark Kent. I think he's 10 or 11. I can't remember the exact age he starts with. I think it's 15 in Birthright. And then he plays, one of his friends goads him into playing football. Like, you can't catch me. I'm gonna beat you in this game. And then, okay, Clark being the kid, wanting to be with his friends, he's like, no, I'll come, I'll join you. And then he because he's so fast and strong, and he knows this, he breaks the kid's arm, his friend's arm. And, his friend gets all the girls, being sympathetic and like, oh, you poor kid. And they don't like Clark Kent. They kind of glare at him and give him angry stares. But of course, the person who is really his foundation in the school world is Lana. And she's the one girl who thinks just well of Clark Kent. He starts understanding his powers, at least in this book, like when he's growing hormonally and he's entering puberty. So maybe it's 12 or 13, I think is the age. He's having these physical failings for Lana, and then he's developing his heat ray vision. And then I love, so just overall, that's kind of the setup going into the story. I love the art. And let me see if I can find some pages. Let's see. I really like, yeah, kind of like this. I mean, very clear, he's a very good looking kid. Lana's pretty. Everything is clear. The face is clear. The clothes are clear. I think I'll just try. I'm trying to talk to the microphone, but this is where he's finding his, I can see through things. I have my X-ray vision. I have it's not heat vision. Is that what it's called? I don't know what it's called. But the power coming from his eyes, like you can see here. And she's kissing him as kind of a mode of encouragement, and then he just gets really excited and he starts his eyes start flaring up, and then he he burns down, I think, a homecoming banner or something, or some party banner. One thing I really do like, it's just so wonderful, is th there's a moment in the story or in the trajectory, the timeline, where he does not know how strong he is until a moment where they're playing hide and seek. He and Lana are playing hide and seek. You could see, oh, let's see if I can do this. Ugh, this is so backwards for me. And she's hiding, but then you can see the terror on her face where there's a tractor with kind of a thresher of some kind about to just pretty much maul her because she's deep in the field there, the wheat field. And Clark, he doesn't know at this time how strong he is, and it doesn't matter. He throws his body over her to protect her, and it's like, oh, that's so good. He didn't know how strong he was, so it's such an uplifting moment. Like he was going to save her, even though he thought he was going to get shredded to bits. You can see that right in the middle panel right there, like that. It's great. And then he's like, "Whoa, I didn't know how strong I was." And then he starts finding developing his powers. And then the depiction, or not depiction, but the overall, uh, well, I would say depiction. The overall depiction of Ma and Pa Kent is just absolutely wonderful in this book. There is a moment where, you know, Ma has not wanted to tell her son up until this point about his, descending to Earth, where he's not from Earth. And I mean, yeah, I'm kind of spoiling it, but it's just so good. He takes the ship and the holograms, the holographic images and the information, um, quite personally. He just doesn't want it. He's like, I want to be Clark Kent. I want to be your son. And I get choked up every time I see this, but oh, look at Pa Kent's eyes. And then he's like, I want to be Clark Kent. I want to be your son. And he says, Clark. And then they just embrace, you are my son. Oh, so good. So good. Meanwhile, in contrast, Lex Luthor is having a pretty bad relationship with his father. His father is a chronic alcoholic. Well, that's kind of redundant to say, but he gets his pa out of jail and out of custody all the time for, I think, drunk driving. Like, he's always inebriated at the wheel. And then, at one point, he's going to get killed off, driving off a cliff, before, Clark saved him, as Superman. But then, of course, he doesn't know what happened. He's just like, oh, there's this flying boy, but eventually, Luther puts up with it, but he's more interested in the science of discovering things like the kryptonite. And there's that one point where, in this story at least, I don't know how it's different with other stories besides Birthright, but in this story, Luther's father, Lex's father, is just, he dies of a heart attack because he's such a raging alcoholic. So there's that one point where the authorities tell, it's Smallville, so everyone knows each other. So it's like, Lex, I'm so sorry. Like, the authorities tell him. And then, like, Lex is pretending to be sad. And then when he shuts the door, he's like, at last, this is my chance to leave Smallville forever. And that's where he makes his journey to Metropolis to become ultimately the nemesis of Superman. And there's some back and forth with Lex and Clark as boys, but it's not really a fostering of a friendship. They're just, Lex is like, hey, you want to buy my book on aliens? and then Clark saying, you want to hang out sometime? And Lex is like, why would I want to do that? So he's sardonic, he's cold, he's ugly, even as a kid. There's no. And people might ask, well, he had such an abusive father. Yes, you can say, well, I guess I sympathize with him being so cold and turning people away. That might be seen a little bit. That could be argued for a book like Secret Origin. But with Birthright in particular, Clark goes out of his way to try to be Lex's friend. And he's still cold and he's still elemental. And he's really bereft of all sanity when he is trying to find more evidence of extraterrestrial forms, life forms. So he's obsessed with science. He's obsessed with knowledge. He just hates Smallville with a passion. But that's from Birthright. But it's just playing on, Clark is trying to engage with Lex, when he's, when they're teenagers or going through coming of age stuff. And, Lex won't have it. He's just inward. He's into himself. He's into his intelligence. He's this born genius. He in Birthright, he makes fun of the teachers for boring him to death or boring the students to death. Okay, now I won't go through all the pictures, but I do have to actually show a picture. Okay, if there's one picture that can describe without words my relationship with my husband, Professor Geek, it's this picture right here. It is it's Clark Kent saving Lana from a tornado. Everything's chaos, and she's just hugging him, and he's seeing he can fly and saving her. And she's like, she's about to ask him, "What are you doing?" or "What has happened?" Because this is the first time he's flown, especially with a person. I think this is the first time he's discovered he can fly. But again, he doesn't know he can fly. He just goes into the tornado to save Lana and to catch her before she gets hurt, injured, or killed. And then he sees he can fly, and then she's about to ask, what's happened? And when they're safe, the first thing he asks is, "Are you all right?" So good. So good. All right. And then she kisses him, and he doesn't tell Ma Kent that. And I won't go into kind of what they're doing here, but I just love Ma Kent and Pa Kent. Like they're kind of grandfatherly and grandmotherly. Like they have kind of a really gentle personality here in the art and in their words and their expression. Ma Kent is very much part of the Superman suit. She's very much intrigued by what she's seen of the holographic images of Krypton before that goes. And so she wants to help Superman, who as a kid is not really keen on the Superman suit, but he has to stay hidden. He has to have a secret identity. He's all sulking here. And then it gets into the Super Friends, which I didn't really know about. And I thought that was really interesting going into the future. But yeah, that's all that. And then we get into Metropolis. And so he's old now. He's probably in his 20s. Lois Lane is looking great. Jimmy Olsen's looking great. And of course, the iconic image right there, all muscle bound, and it's excellent. Now, with Metropolis, this is his finding his place in Metropolis. This is finding his feet. Now, it's not really explained too much in Secret Origin. I think it's actually wonderfully explained in Birthright, where Superman in Birthright, but you can kind of see that this would be in any case with Superman's life, whatever story it is. He wants to do the right thing, and he wants to save as many people as possible from imminent danger. Obviously, he's going to succeed as Superman, but how does he do that vocationally? Well, being a journalist and telling the truth and saying the facts as fast as possible. And what better place? Well, in Metropolis with the Daily Planet. Now, when he's first at Metropolis in Secret Origin, he's bombarded with a lot of cynicism and a lot of people just hurrying through the streets, looking down, feeling anxious. This is also depicted in Birthright. And he's kind of finding his place. Someone accidentally bumps into him, but she blames him, because of his bulkiness and his muscular stature. Her purse is, knocked out of her hand, and he says, "Oh, excuse me, sorry," and he picks up the purse to give it back to her. But in such a big city, when the crime is high, obviously, of course, she's going to be suspicious, and she is very ugly with him, and saying, what's your problem? It's like, sorry, I was looking at how beautiful this architecture is, how these skyscrapers. I'm new here, and then she berates him, saying, people here have no time to be looking up at the sky, which is kind of funny because that's going to indicate that they're going to look up at the sky quite a bit in the future. And So he's trying to be he goes to his interview with the Daily Planet. He's trying to be very cordial with people and very nice to people. And there's this one guy I at first what's his name? Is it Rudy? Is it Rudy Jones, I think? I can't quite remember, but man, I was disturbed with the trajectory of this character. I was so disturbed. I might talk about it just because it's so disturbing. But I think his name is Rudy Jones, if I have that correct. And he's this custodian at least at the building infrastructure of the Daily. Maybe it's the whole Daily Planet or just the building where the Daily Planet is and he's kind of grumbling. He's like, "Oh, you're new here." He's trying to. It sounds like he's being friendly and trying to um, help Clark Kent find his feet. And then you see, oh, he's a little bit of a gerbil. He's kind of greedy because Clark Kent, until he has his paycheck, he can't go out to restaurants, so he has his packed lunch because that's kind of a Kansas farm boy. That would be something that he would do. Like, yeah, I got a packed lunch. Um, and that's all he had for the whole day. And Rudy kind of manipulates him to give the lunch to him. He's like, "Oh, this is all I have." But if you he's like, "Oh yeah, I left my lunch. I'm not going to be eating all day." That's what Rudy says. And then Clark, being the decent man he is, he offers Rudy his lunch. And then he starts gobbling up the lunch in the elevator when Clark is like, "Hey, it's only 10 o'clock. It's not even lunchtime." And I guess the excuse was, "Well, I'm trying to fortify myself." And so, okay, so he's a little greedy. He's a little bit of a gerbil. And then he goes to see Daily Planet, Lois Lane, of course, for the first time. Lois is, pegging Perry White as like, just because you guys can't operate on, you know, things that are not true. She's kind of sticking it to him, and he's taking the guff, but he wants to do the right thing too. And Jimmy Olsen is trying, he's finding his feet as an intern. So it's all the casual stuff, or all the stuff we expect of a Superman origin story. And then immediately, like, Clark is sent out with Lois to, take down Lex Luthor. And because in this story, all the news outlets are just fawning over, like sycophants over Lex Luthor and his great accomplishments and his achievements. And at this point, there's a part of the morning, like it's like a daily ritual where Lex Luthor is presented to all the city, and everyone is like, pick me, pick me. They're so desperate, they're so hungry, they're poor, they're sick, and they think Lex Luthor, their savior, can treat their ailments or help them out of a situation. And he only picks one candidate. Now these candidates, it's said that they mysteriously disappear. And we see a homage helicopter scene, paying tribute to the Donner film, of course, with Lois, and of course, Clark Kent becoming Superman for the first time in Metropolis. And then things kind of go into, like, we have to see what's going on with Lex Luthor, and we see a little bit later events take place where the custodian Rudy is selected as a candidate, and basically Luthor says, like, "Oh, what can I do for you, sir?" And Rudy, being kind of a selfish gerbil as he is, he's like, "Oh, a lot." And then as he's going through the structure, Lex Corp, Rudy's kind of he's very overweight. He's very greasy. He's unkempt. He eats any donut that he can see, any coffee, any donut. Like, he's just very, very greedy. He just consumes food, just, of course, on a very unhealthy basis. And unfortunately, Lex, with his experiments, he's there's a bit of transportation of wicked looking pink purple fluid. And because of a hazardous leak, one of the fluids gets on gets on a donut, and he eats it, and then he transforms into this horrifying. I guess I'm spoiling it. Horrifying monster that we know to be at least a version of the parasite, like the human parasite. I think that's what the creature is called. So it's going to be introduced in other Superman stories. And I found that to be so disturbing because now he's feeding off of people. This parasite, it has this kind of leech-like. I don't know if leeches have this. Do they have this kind of mouth where it's like a circular and just all these layers of teeth? And then it moves, like the page is conveying that the mouth moves kind of like a drill to just suck the energy off of people. And I think in later stories, because I was kind of reading into it a little bit more because it disturbed me so much, is that um, he takes on maybe not personalities, maybe depending on the story, but also intelligence. So he actually does become quite a formidable, intelligent creature. But it came to be from this terrible, you know, very greedy, very fat, ungrateful custodian, and that disturbed me because one, it's a product of Lex's science, this kind of pseudo science that's quite evil, and it changed him to just a monster of his own vice, which was gluttony. So if you're always feeding, always being gluttonous, well, if you have this whatever liquid or substance this was, you're transformed into an insatiable parasite creature that can't be stopped except with Superman. Of course, Superman saves the day. Lex Luthor takes advantage of that. They're both aliens. They're both aliens. I'm your savior. These guys are bad. These guys are trouble. And then, that casts doubt on Superman. By the populace. Like the populace is like, oh, who is this alien? Who's this guy that can fly and appears indestructible? Oh, he's dangerous too. But then he saved us from this other monster, so can we trust him? And that's always the question to ask with a Superman origin story. Like, can Metropolis trust this newcomer who can do everything? Well, he also has the task. Superman has the task of persuading people even if they accuse him of being an alien, even as he comes to find later that he's come from another world. Well, he sees that as a kid too. Earth is his home, and he wants to protect Earth. Earth does not belong to him, and he says that he contends with Luthor on that. He says, or Luthor, however to say his surname. He contends with his enemy on that, saying, "You don't own Metropolis. You don't own these people. You don't own the world, and I don't. Neither of us do. We're here to protect what's good, and that is humanity." And so that's effectively Superman coming to terms with who he is. Okay, this is who I am. This is who I have to be. And even with a doubting populace, a populace of just absolute cynicism and desperation, he wants to work. And it seems like these books, both of them actually, they give you this like daunting. The book conveys this daunting task that Superman has to overcome, and that is to win the hearts of the people, at least by way of trust, if not love, saying, "I am not here to overtake Earth. I'm not here to overtake you. I'm here to protect you." And that's the main mission of Superman, while he's battling the bad guys. There's another bad guy introduced here. It's pretty interesting, Metallo. I thought he was pretty interesting and kind of sick and twisted. But I've been saying some things with the story, but it's very good. It's very good. And there are some really deep moments that is so uplifting. When Clark Kent comes to Metropolis for the first time, people just are swarming Lex Corp's gates, just to say, "Pick me, Lex. I have the most problems. I have the most issues. You can save me." And people are just kind of pushing each other back, saying, "Make way. You don't have, like, my kid has cancer. Well, I lost my job." And it's all these people just biting at each other just to get that golden ticket per se. And then after Superman comes into play, and after he's saved civilians, putting them out of harm's way, protecting them, defending them, there's a moment where Lex comes out to his people, who are so desperate for him, and there's no one. Like, the security guards look bored. There's an old man walking his dog. No one needs him anymore because they've been personally uplifted by Superman's heroic axe. And so I think that's really important to set up as part of a Superman story. Clark Kent as a boy finding his place, yes, in Smallville in relation to Ma and Pa Kent, and also to Lana, also to his friends, because his friends are good natured too, even if he accidentally breaks one friend's arm. And so it's about finding his place on Earth with Smallville and Metropolis, doing the right thing and achieving justice, of course. Truth, just truth as his vocation as a journalist, but also exposing the truth of someone like Lex Luthor with his insidious science. So I would say I would actually give this like A tier. I love the art. It's very hopeful. It's very uplifting. Um, the anatomy is really good. Yeah, he's so that parasite, man. He's so gross and so scary. Um, this is a really good Superman pose right here. Um, it's great, and the way the trunks are laid out here is wonderful. This is a great, I would say, a very good version of Superman in the way of art, because I kind of want to compare it with Birthright, because there are some things like, yeah, that's great right here. Look at that, beautiful, beautiful art, very uplifting, and I will make some comparisons with this art and Birthright. I really did like there's a lighter tone to this art. Um, you know, Lois has all the right lines on her face, but not too many because she's supposed to be a beautiful woman. Like compared to, let's see if you can see. I know the light's kind of bad, sorry, but if you can compare, let's see, I don't want to get out of the way there. If you can compare, Lois's face to, that of Perry White, Perry is older, he's gonna have more lines on his face, but the lines aren't gratuitous. Some of these people, and not just, we'll talk about Birthright in the matter of art soon, but some artists, even now, even with indie artists, man, I have seen lines way too much, like lines that shouldn't be inked. Maybe as kind of a sketch or some light pencil work, but definitely not inked. They made Lois very pretty. They've made Lex Luthor very cold. It's great. Then there's Luthor with his two new minions. That's great. Sorry about the light, but that's the way it has to be, I guess. Anyway, and it really is about what I appreciated a lot with the story, also with the Birthright story, is just how much power Lex Luthor has of the press. And if you have the press in your pocket, you really do have ultimate power. And if you have like billions of dollars worth of resources to take Superman down, well, that's going to be a threat. Now I know there are so many more villains than just Lex Luthor. This is my third. It's my first introduction of Superman. This is my third comic. Birthright is my fourth comic on Superman, and I'm going to read one more Superman comic that's not an origin story, maybe with a different villain. And then I'm gonna go straight to Batman stories, of course, September for Halloween, because I love Batman as much as I love Superman. I think they're equally wonderful. But let's get into Birthright. Here you go, by none other than Mark Waid, who we've talked about. Well, I haven't talked about on my stream, but and then, I forgot how to pronounce his name. Lineal Yu. You can't see the print there, but that's the cover. Lineal Francis Yu and Gary Allen Julian or something. I don't know. I don't know the third person's name, but we're going to be talking mostly. We'll talk a little bit about Mark Waid and his choices, his creative choices, and then also Yu. I'm just going to call him Yu because I can't pronounce his first. LF. No, I won't say LFU. Lenuel Francis Yu. I hope I'm saying his name right. 1 second though. Let me grab some water really quickly. And I think I'm going to open the door also. So let's talk about Birthright. Now, Oh, I forgot to give my score. Well, this is A tier. If you haven't read Secret Origin, and if you haven't read Superman, I'm kind of just getting into these stories. I would highly recommend this. I still like Kryptonite as my favorite. I don't know why. There's just a lot to it, but I mean, this is really, I would say this is my second favorite to date. And then Superman for All Seasons. Um, Birthright was a hit or miss for me, I will say. A lot of strong points, a lot of not so strong points, and we'll talk about it. I will say, as a Superman story, it's a pretty solid story. I enjoyed a lot of it. I was personally touched by the intro and pretty much the denouement with Superman, his mother and father, um, Jor-El and Lara, I think is her name. Very touching. Actually, the story gripped me. It moved me on, at a lot of certain points. I think though we'll talk a little bit about the story because it kind of mirrors a little bit with Secret Origin in that Lex Luthor is out to cast doubt on this new alien figure, Superman. He wants to be the one totally controlling Metropolis, totally controlling the human population, and the fact that there is someone as intelligent and also physically indestructible, well, that's a threat to Luthor. So he's going to do everything. Not just he doesn't want just to destroy Superman. He wants to destroy his legacy, who he is truly. He wants to lie about Superman. He also wants to he wants to deconstruct Superman literally in this book. Now, like he is a one twisted SOB in this book. I mean, he is kind of twisted in the other stories, but oh, there is some sadistic stuff in this book that I'm like, oh, okay, he's gone. He's like my first introduction to Superman was the Superman 78 film, the first Donner film. And yeah, Luthor's bad, but he has a gimmicky side to him in the movie. I'm not against that, by the way, but Prof explained it best to me. You don't understand the danger behind Lex Luthor with that. I mean, yeah, obviously he causes problems and mayhem, but not on the level that I see with these comics. Like the real Lex Luthor is in these stories, and he is really twisted. He's so sadistic in this story. It's more or less as the other one. It's another origin story. Where Clark Kent is, I think, if not approaching high school, he's in high school. It's kind of around that age, probably 15, yeah, 14 or 15. So he's probably in high school with Lana. I will say I'm not a fan of the art for a couple of reasons. Things are kind of out of proportion. The color is pretty desaturated. Things are hard to see. So if you don't have young eyes, they're kind of hard to see, like what is happening with the action. My biggest complaint with the art, let me see if I can find it in the first time. I can't. Well, they kind of. You did not do the artist, Francis Yu. I'm just going to call him Francis Yu. I apologize. I don't know how to pronounce his first name. Francis Yu, he did not do a very good job making women beautiful, for instance. Like Lara, the mother of Superman, she doesn't look bad, but she doesn't look beautiful. And the reason is, and I'm going to try to find it. Actually, I will say that's great. I love that. Like it's kind of like a movie. DC Comics proudly presents the story of Krypton's last son, and then it goes into almost like a film. That's nice. I like it. But I can't. I'll have to find it. It starts with a story where Superman is actually 25 years old, and he's trying to do some important journalism in Africa. Against these factions, which one faction is quite unjust. So he's trying to bring about justice, and it's kind of great. He's wrestling with a lion here. and all of that. Let me see if I can find it. They just don't. Maybe this is an example here. I don't know. Maybe it's not the best example, but this man right here, where my thumb is pointing, you see how many lines are on his face? Yeah, he's supposed to be an elder of some kind in Africa, but that's just one of many examples where the lines on people's faces, including Lois Lane, is gratuitous. It's really not attractive at all. And I'm not saying you have to make every character physically beautiful in a comic, but when they almost look alien themselves, or when they look obviously animated, like obviously comics are graphic novels with colorists and animation that's not moving, obviously. But when people aren't as attractive as they could be, I guess that's my main point. Here's one point, and this is just one example. Let's see if you can see that. If you can see on his face, that's kind of hard to see in this light. There's what looks like bits of paper, and it's on baby Superman's face when he's sent out from the impending doom that is Krypton. You see little bits of what looks like just confetti on his face and confetti around his eyes. It's supposed to be tears and spit, right? And so every instance that someone is angry and shouting, it's what should be spit or spittle is actually looking like pieces of paper coming off of their mouths or out of their mouths. And it's just a choice that they made, a creative choice that just does not look very good. Oh, there's a tear, an actual tear, but I won't spoil it. I still recommend reading the story because it's a pretty strong story. Then we go back to Kansas after his dealings with the injustice and the injustice and all the goings on in I forgot which African country, but he's back from Africa. I mean, at one point he wrestles with a lion. That's cute. He flies with the zebras. That's great. But he goes back to Kansas, and so he's 25. He's about to find his place in Metropolis. He wants to do good journalism. He wants to bring about the truth and maintain justice and order in society and civilization. Perfect vocation for an honest journalist. But well, basically, the premise is that Ma Kent at this time is fairly preoccupied with extraterrestrial life because that's where her son comes from. Okay, interesting hobby. That's great. This kind of Kansas boomer is into the extraterrestrial life, trying to find more things about her son's past. I get it. That would be a natural trajectory if you were such a parent. And so she's very much excited to home in on his powers and what he could be, like his true self. Like, I want to not enable, but like I want to help with you finding your place in this world. Okay, good. This is great. Pa Kent, however, this is a creative choice I did not really care for, but he's pretty cynical about the situation. He kind of is pouty. He's kind of whiny. He gives both Ma Kent and Clark Kent a silent treatment. And now he's struggling with letting his son go. Like, he's been a father to his son ever since his son was a baby. So yes, there's real issue here, but he's handling it very differently from other versions of Pa Kent that I've seen. And then there's one point where he, in frustration, destroys something that pretty much causes the whole barn to collapse in, and then Superman, or Clark, rescues his father, of course. And there's one point, it's like Clark is basically asking, "Are you okay, Dad?" That's the question. And there's a moment where Pa Kent is like, he's considering if in anger Superman or Clark is going to drop him from the height that they're in, because he's never flown with his son before. And it's like, Pa Kent would never think Superman. And Superman says that, or Clark says, I won't drop you. It's like, yeah, so why was this a creative choice? It was weird. It was very, it I don't think it was the right take for Pa Kent. That's not to discredit a lot of good things that he does say. Pa Kent does say many good things in the book regarding his relationship, his past relationship to Lex Luthor. Um, that any evil doing of Luthor is not Superman's fault. It's not Clark's fault. Clark tried to be a friend to Lex when basically, yeah, you could say Lex ostracized himself from Smallville, but Smallville was because they didn't understand his intelligence, they didn't understand his personality. They were also kind of giving him a wide berth, and I don't think that's the route to take. I mean, yeah, small town folk will keep to themselves, and if someone's acting a little atypical or weird, I've seen it in real life, where it's like, okay, I'm going to give this person a wide berth. I don't like how he's behaving. I don't like how he's talking. Now, it doesn't, I'm not excusing anything that Lex has said in the story, and Clark isn't either. And Lex does deal out things pretty deviously with Smallville's people regarding a football game, other things like that. And Clark in this book is really close to having Lex understand just a little, because their level of intelligence is the same. Lex can talk to, even in a sardonic, cold, calculating way. At least Lex can talk to Clark on the same level, but he doesn't open his heart to Clark, and that's from his upbringing with his father. In this story, his mother has passed away quite early on, so I don't think he has a sister in this story. But basically his father's he's not an alcoholic, but he's just kind of this rich man who doesn't think much of his son. He just neglects him. So Lex kind of fends for himself and starts like making these machines and, trying to find more evidence of extraterrestrial life. And it's funny, he actually thinks some of his machines do not work because they're reacting erratically in front of Clark, who is an alien, effectively. But he thinks it's a failure on his part, and he's so bereft, and he becomes more insane and more inward, obviously. So there's that. He's completely isolated. He's secluded. At one point, when in this way, his father is killed in this book. His father is killed in a different way, and he evades the authorities. He runs away, never to be seen again, obviously, until Metropolis. So it's all good, but I would say the art is a little unusual. It's just a style I do not care for. So let me see if I can find. Yeah. There's one point where Jonathan Kent says, let's see. Martha Kent is saying, or Ma Kent is saying, Superman or Clark needs to be reminded he's just like you and me. And then Pa Kent says, well, that's just it, isn't it? He's not. It's like, no, that's not Pa Kent. Pa Kent accepts Clark as his son, no matter what. All right, he's in Metropolis. It's kind of funny. I'm trying to find like examples of the art that I have a problem with, but it's hard to find a really good example because the art is also inconsistent. Like some of the style is really grotesque looking, and then some of the style passes on for, okay, this looks fine. Lois looks different all the time. Like I noticed she looked the most different out of all the characters. I think Jimmy more or less looked the same. Oh yeah, I do need to show you something though that I couldn't get over. Okay, so at first, okay, so take a look at this panel. Like look at this. So he's just been almost demolished by a threat, and he comes out of the rubble. Take a look at that neckline. Now, at first I thought, okay, he's coming out of the rubble. Not rebel, the rubble. He's coming out of the rubble, so maybe some of his uniform is ruined, and it expanded the neckline. But then, the more I was reading, it's like, oh no, that's now you could say it is, but no. I had to check back too. I had to look back at some earlier photos before he actually gets kicked in the rear. No, that's his neckline for this book. And it looks dumb. It looks it's not a masculine thing. It's actually a pretty feminine thing. Like women in fiction or in real life, they look way more sexy, way sexier, I should say, when they show shoulders. So like really good looking shirts on really good looking women are when the shoulders are bare. That's a feminine thing. That is not a masculine thing. I don't care what country you're from in this world. I don't care what fashion statement it is. Men should not have real wide necklines. That is a woman thing. That's just a fact. And I started thinking, it's like, that looks dumb. So that's one creative artistic choice that I didn't like at all. But yeah, Lex Luthor being, oh, there's another one. Yeah. Let me find another choice, a creative choice that I didn't care for. Let me see. There's one point where Superman apprehends two teenagers that are trying to shoot up a school, and he gets them. Not apprehends. That's for the authorities to do. He gets them, but he finds the source of where they got the guns, and it's a seller who's pretty apathetic of giving reckless teenagers guns. And there's one point where Superman actually shoots at the man with one of his own guns and stops the bullet really quickly. At first I kind of covered over that because I was like, I don't think he did that. Like it was in my mind, but then because I thought he was like trapping him with like artillery and all that or weapons. But yeah, Superman, there's one point where Superman is catching the bullets he fires at the gun owner, and I'm like, or gun store owner, and I'm like, that's not really Superman. He's not going to do that. Yeah, there's one point where it's getting really sadistic. It's kind of gross, where Lex Luthor has these fantasies, these holographic fantasies, if you will, because it's high tech, of deconstructing the body of Superman. And Lois and Clark are like, we're out of here. This is a little too much. As I find the thing I'm looking for, one thing I also didn't really care for, and these might be nitpicks because I still think the story is pretty strong. One thing I did not care for was overall, Clark Kent is quite morose, and Superman he's doing the right thing, but with gritted teeth. Yeah, he has all sorts of obstacles to face, and I'm not saying he's not working as hard as he can to protect the public and also earn their trust. But there's a sense of angst and like a very dark, somber nature about Superman and Clark Kent, both of them. And Clark Kent, yeah, sometimes he's sheepish and he's like, oh, LOL, so random humor, which is probably fitting for Clark Kent, but at this, he's like never happy. He smiles once and like his teeth are like buck tooth and all that, and just it's not good. But let me I think I found it. Yeah, look at this. This is Mark Waid wanting Superman to be Batman. He's like, I'm angry with you, Lex, and I need to show you you're not right in doing this. And and there's that second panel from the top on that page where you can't really see it here. Let's see if I can show it up just a little bit more. I mean, that's a Batman look. He's got the cape and he's got red eyes because he's angry or whatever. And I'm like, that's okay. Are you trying to be Batman? Are you trying to make Superman Batman? I mean, that's just, there's a difference, guys. They're both equally cool, equally great characters, but there's a difference. There's an aesthetic difference and there's a difference in personality. That's what makes different characters work. But anyway, yeah, overall he's covering a lot of obstacles. He's trying to protect. Well, actually, the way Luthor gets him with the populace in this book is pretty insane. He's very powerful. He's got this billion-dollar technology that I probably would surpass even Wayne Enterprises or Wayne Tech, whatever the company is, to create this mass hysteria that Superman was pretty much this advanced scout for a future alien invasion. And at first I thought this was going to be just newsworthy stuff to discredit Superman. Turns out, Lex Luthor has his ways of just playing that out in real time with, yes, holographic images, but actual soldiers loyal to Luthor who, or trained people who maybe have been court-martialed in the past, who are being militaristic and pretending to be these aliens, of course, Krypton and all that. These aliens that you know have originated from the same place Superman has. So that's to discredit Superman even more. It's very poetic because, of course, in the end, Superman solves how to do that with the help of Lois Lane. Also with pictures, Jimmy Olsen with his picture taking, because people will believe the pictures they see. I'm kind of sad that that's not the case anymore. People won't believe it, even if you have evidence and pictures of what's happened. But the days where Jimmy Olsen is taking pictures, the populace sees, oh, he saved that kid from the explosion with this thing. He's this makeshift shield, and then it's all over the news, and then that builds the trust eventually, and then ultimately, Luthor wants to contact any aliens, and he tries to contact Krypton with his advanced technology. Obviously, Krypton is he works with time jumping through this wormhole where he's able to contact, at least momentarily, Krypton, the Kryptonians at the end, and basically he's like, I need your help, I need your weapons, I need your advanced technology, help me, help me. And they're just telling him to celebrate literature and art and all that. It was like, that's pretty good. And there's a beautiful moment when Superman can at least send a message through this time jumping technology that Luthor created. He can say, I'm here, I made it. So you know, Jor-El and his wife can really rest in peace, before the impending doom. They say, oh, he did make it. Like, because they were wondering, is there a chance he's not even gonna make a planet, make his destination? And turns out he did. He's like, mother, father, I made it. And I was like, that's good. So I'm not digging Birthright at all. I think there are some really strong points in the story. My one complaint is some personality choices, and then also the art. The art is really stylistic, and it really doesn't work. Like, Lois looked different every single page, and actually that's kind of confusing, because if you're trying to keep track of all the characters, they should more or less look the same. So you're like, oh, I'm speaking to this person now. Oh, we're in this person's perspective now. And so I was not a fan. So I would say it's like C tier art. Even though it's stylistic, I call it C tier. It's not attractive. It's not pleasing to the eye. Story was a good B. I would say the story, apart from some personality changes, I would say the story is a pretty definitive Superman story. So I would still recommend it to other people, but it's definitely not my favorite out of the 4 I have read. So that's all of Superman. Let's finally get into the chat, but let me drink some water first. Andrea says, to be fair, Sound Engraver, just because Superman is Boy Scout doesn't mean he can get serious when he sees such evil villainy. Yeah, but like, then we should have no problem with Henry Cavill. Like, if you want that personality, that's fine. But he needs to be personally different from someone like Lex Luthor. Now, his motive is the opposite. It's completely different. But even his aura should be different. If he is the beacon of hope with bright red and bright blue and his insignia there, or his symbol, he has to have a quite a strong element of optimism. And yeah, he can be angry, but he was not, it wasn't just anger with this book. He was like, I don't know what's going on. Like, he had kind of a pouty face. He was kind of smashing the table with his fist when he's very anxious about something. And it's like, yeah, I know you're finding your feet, but I think I would say Lois shouldn't be so quick to trust him if he's very dark and brooding, and because he hates the evil, obviously, but I would say if I saw him in real life, I'm like, okay, take care not to be so absorbed in it, lest you are succumb to that evil. And the optimism that Superman presents is one way to backfire such evil science and evil technology. Um, he can like there's a panel in Superman for All Seasons that I really appreciated. Superman is hovering over Lex Luthor in the office, on that in the skyscraper, and he's stern. He's kind of just like crossing his arms, and he's being the father. He's like, or the big brother is like, you need to knock it off. So yeah, he can have that personality. I'm all in favor of it, but he was always anxious. Like he Clark Kent and Superman the whole time was always anxious, and I was like, I don't want a completely anxious Superman. Not for the whole story. Maybe for a few real intense moments. There were some real anxious uh, points in this book as well, but he kept a good head on his shoulders. Um, and if you want like brooding, like just have it be Batman. So let's go all the way up the chat. Just make sure I'm not missing anything. Andrea says, to me, Jeff Johns is the one guy who knows his stuff with DC lore and knows what makes superheroes awesome. I think he is the reason DC Rebirth was so great. I don't know really too much about the history of Rebirth and what happened there. Obviously, Prof knows because he was following it at the time. And I think this might be my first Jeff Johns story. There are just some moments where it's, well, how do I put it? It's so integral. It's absolutely the essence of what makes Superman. Part of it is his relationship to Pa Kent and vice versa. Like the reciprocation of such human love. It's like, oh, dang, that's deep. All right. I mean, that's just how it is, says Andreas. Some writers are really great back then, and they go crazy for some reason. Mark Waid is one of them. And I forgot how old the Birthright book is. It's older than I thought. I thought it was 2015 or 2013. I think it's actually older than that, but I can't remember. Yeah, I mean, Birthright, if it was written post 2016, would have been a really different story. Yeah. Let's see. About 2/3 of my friends, says Samuel Proctor, are married now. 1/3 of those have kids already. That's how it goes where I live. Yeah, that makes sense. Just make sure you guys have a lot of common interests. That's gonna save some headaches in the future. That's for sure. Private Eye says, I would love to have a family. I'm really just bad with meeting people, much less women. Maybe someday I'll find one. Yeah, if you listen to David Stewart, he sometimes talks about that, and I feel for younger men especially now because you really have to put yourself out there in the social scene. That really does mean church. That's what I recommend, or something where the community is strong, some local community, some small town community, or even if if you have a healthy work environment, that might be something. Maybe you have a coworker who has a sister or a cousin or something. Community is where it's at. Now, I say that kind of ironically because I didn't meet Professor Geek with any physical community. It was through YouTube, unfortunately. Well, not unfortunately for me, but like, I don't know. I feel like that's a diamond in the rough where because people are genuinely surprised. Like, you met your husband on YouTube? I'm like, yeah, it's kind of a strange thing. But also a lot more practical these days. But at the same time, I was interested in listening to him. I was interested in what he had to say about certain things. And that's what started. It was completely organic. Completely organic. Ace Moak wants to binge on on Smallville. Yeah, yeah. Jeff Johns, Andres says, is the GOAT. His other Superman stories, excuse me, his other Superman stories like Superman Brainiac and Doomsday Clock are also amazing. Yeah, I'd like to see another villain. And I'd like to see now Superman in his element. Okay, Metropolis knows him. You know, they see him as not commonplace, but like, oh, there he goes out to save some other city or some other person or something. Welcome to Dega Outlaw. Good to see you. I hope I haven't been hunching this whole time. Final Fantasy does say Secret Origin takes a little bit of John Byrne's Superman run from 1988, but takes a lot of things from Richard Donner's Superman film. I'm having a hard time saying Superman. Yeah, good stuff. And I appreciate that first film a lot. I haven't seen the others, so if you guys tell me about the other movies, I won't really know what you're talking about because I've only seen the first one. Tom Welling. Oh, now Ace is getting into the Smallville casting. I think Tom Welling is a superb Clark, Superboy, in all but name. Michael Rosenbaum is peak Lex Luthor. Kristen, I don't know how to pronounce her last name. Craig. As Lana is drop dead gorgeous. You can see why Clark would have had a hard time picking. Basically, everyone is perfectly cast. I'm so into the science fiction stuff right now. I mean, I guess you can call Superman's sci-fi fantasy or something. I mean, you can call all of the science fiction really sci-fi fantasy, but I'm as far as television goes, man, I can't get enough of Stargate. I'm gonna be ultimately pretty sad when I'm finished with it, but then you can always go back. All right. Final Fantasy, you also talk about casting, and then you also add, nor does Lex Luthor look like Gene Hackman. Still a good movie though. Yeah. Looks like you guys are talking amongst yourselves. Ace says, one part of the art of Secret Origins that kind of bugs me is that Jonathan Kent kind of looks like Christopher Reeve. I saw that too. Makes sense for Clark, but shouldn't his adoptive father look different from him? That's a very fair point. Yeah. I see a little bit of that. And maybe artists were working at the time, you know, with deadlines. I'm like, okay, I can make it just a little bit different with Jonathan Kent, still kind of make it look like Clark Kent. Yeah, that's a good point. You know, I wanted to make a point too that oh, this is perfect. Easy miss. I've got you. I know that that's the picture with Clark and Lana, but at the same time, like, yeah, that's a great. Yeah, he does have me. It's wonderful. He helps me with times where I feel anxious about stuff. So Professor Geek is the perfect analog, the real life analog to Superman, even though he can't fly. Let's see. But on Ace's point with the art, I didn't see it as much with the Secret Origin. I'm very new with this art with comic books because it's my first time reading comic books this year is really my first time reading comic books. But the more you read, the more you kind of pick up things. I sensed with Francis Yu, I sensed that he was taking shortcuts. Not with everything, not with all the pages or all the paneling, but there were times where I felt like it's like, are you just doing that to fill space? And if that's the case, I don't appreciate it. I know with Marvel writers and artists and DC writers and artists, they had deadlines. So I'm not totally against shortcuts, but when it's obvious, like, oh, you had a deadline and you try to fix that as fast as possible, then I'm like, I don't know. I don't know about that. Samuel Proctor says, I'm not sure how I feel about the idea of Lex happening to also grow up in Smallville. I guess it's like the 89 Joker murdering the Waynes situation where in a vacuum it still works, but we're just so used to the lore where they aren't there that early. Yeah, I mean, I know there's a lot of different Superman stories, probably that may not include Lex Luthor until, you know, they're adults in Metropolis. Yeah, Legion. Sorry, Legion of Superheroes. Yes, Ace. Oh, I need to put up Ace's comment. Sorry, completely forgot that the Legion of Superheroes made an appearance there. Yeah, it was pretty interesting. I mean, it wasn't my personal favorite, but I think they drop off the dog in the spaceship. There's an alien dog ship that comes, and I think that's after he sees he sees the team of people. I got a little lost, I'll be honest. I did get a little lost with that one. But Prof says Legion of Superheroes is great, so that's kind of nice. Yes, Brian, I'm talking about the Rudy who becomes Parasite. That whole thing completely disturbed me. To become a monster of your own vice in a horrific way and terrifying people before you suck all their life energy out. It's horrible. It's just horrible. And it's funny, he doesn't lose his identity when he becomes the parasite. That's what's so disturbing. He tells Lex Luthor, you said all I can eat, you know, like when Luthor first sees him, he says, you did say, Mr. Luthor, I could have anything I wanted to eat. So he's trying to eat people at this point, and it's like, gee. So he doesn't even lose himself. He doesn't even lose his memory of what he said. He's not completely uh, bereft of human logic and memory. That's what makes it so terrifying. I was personally disturbed. And what I do is I usually read more about the character. But that all said, I actually wouldn't mind seeing more appearances of him as a because I know he has another alter ego with another person, and he's different in different stories, and it looks pretty fascinating. So let's scroll on down a little bit. Yeah, Final Fantasy agrees. The transformation of the parasite is absolutely terrifying too. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, very, very horrific. Ace says if they ever did a Superman movie, right, Parasite and Metallo would be nice change of pace for the main antagonist. I found Metallo to be pretty interesting. Like he's all ego and brute strength, and he's maniacal. Especially, well, he was kind of maniacal before the transformation. He, at least with this story, Secret Origin, he had his sights on Lois, who rejected him because her father her father really liked him, wanted him to be with her because he never had a son. You know, like there's this sad moment where Lois talks to Clark about, you know, when my sister was born, he said not another one. You know, it's like, oh, that's horrible. So yeah. Andrea says, I think Lex killing his own father shows how evil Lex can be and would make him elemental evil. Yeah, I don't even if he has an abusive relationship as a kid, you do see the elemental in this character. There's nothing completely, at least from what I can see with these books, these stories, there's nothing completely sympathetic about him. You're as a reader, you're supposed to be unnerved by him. Like you know, with Birthright, when Clark is trying to be his friend, you know, sharing a meal, sharing some moments on the rooftop, looking at the stars, talking about the constellations. You know, there's kind of a moment like where even me as a reader, like if I was in the world, I would say, "Come on, Clark, do you want to hang out with him?" Like even me, like he brings about that aura, that attitude where you're like, I don't. Clark is doing the right thing, but man, he's hard. He's hard to get along with. Andrea says, to be honest, I don't like Jonathan Kent destroying Superman's ship. I think Pa Kent is supposed to be supportive of Clark. Yeah, I can imagine him struggling with, like, this paternal jealousy. That would make sense. In fact, that's very sympathetic of adoptive fathers, like people who adopt children from different parents or different people. But e I do believe, even if he's struggling with that kinda insecurity, that he would still bolster, that support that Clark needs to find his place in the world. Because he's not going away, he's staying on Earth. Sound Spidey Rules says, Superman did that catching a bullet thing back in the early golden age of comics, and the Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman. I still don't think that's the even if it's in other stories, I don't think that's the right take. To scare someone out of his wits, to because why is that a problem? Superman with everyone, not just the good people of Metropolis, with everyone, he's trying to maintain trust. And if you bully someone like that, even if you're not going to kill them, that's a form of psychological torture as well. One sec, I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Let's see. Brian is saying sounds like Mark Waid is channeling some Zack Snyder energy in his writing. Oh, excuse me. Spidey Rules says, surprisingly, even the Superman in the animated series. Oh, well, if you guys are talking about the animated series, I haven't seen that yet, so I might skip the comments that are talking about the animated series. Oh, okay. So Private Eye, I did not know that, considering Secret Origin was written years after Birthright, plus the influence of Smallville. It probably retcons a lot of Wade's stories. Ah, I'm not saying like either or would retcon each other. I don't think it's that. It's just two different takes. And like I said before, even though I have a lot of gripes with some creative choices in Birthright, I still think it's a pretty solid Superman story. So, 2004 says Private Eye, and Secret Origin is 2009. Wow. Prof says YouTubers get chicks as long as they can talk. Um, uh, I'm slowly, this is probably another topic for another time, but I'm slowly getting bored. I try to listen to people on live streams, and more I find, even if it's like with artists, for instance, like professional artists, I can't really sit with them in a live stream because I'm not talking about me in their live stream. I'm talking about watching their live streams. And the reason is and I thank you guys for watching me. Hopefully I say interesting enough stuff. But when you're in a live stream, especially with a group of people, like a panel of people, man, it's so easy to think that, well, we're just chilling, like we'd be chilling together in the living room or out on the deck having a beer or something. And that might be fine as an idea, but when you execute it, it can be really boring because it's like me on the outside looking in, and then you guys are talking about like sometimes in the conversation of the live streams, it would be like instead of just kind of tapping on the 10-second button rapidly, like, okay, get to the point or whatever. Like if I was at the party and I'd be kind of bored on the deck, sitting in a chair, I'd probably just find something else to do, like go wash some dishes or something. And I've noticed a lot of YouTubers, especially even professionals, people who are not professional YouTubers, but people who are professionals in their own craft or whatever. They talk like they talk so like they're just chilling, and some people like that. Some people can be entertaining with that, but a lot of people, I think, won't stick around because it's like, okay, unless it's a topic. I don't think I could like hang out. Like if I it was just me and you guys just hanging out, I think it'd be a really short stream. I feel like I have to have a topic of some sorts. All right. Oh my gosh, we're at 90 minutes, dang it. I took an earlier walk. I kind of want to take another walk, but this might be a longer live stream than normal. Okay, well, okay. You know what? Let me just give you a tease before I said I wanted to talk a little bit about Star Wars, Fatal Alliance. That was another book I read. That's Darth Kratos, if you need to know. I highly recommend this book. I might talk about it on the stream just a little bit, but I might also just check with you guys in the chat. That book is good. That EU book is good. I love the Old Republic. A lot of good things. I really appreciated it. His name is Sean Williams, not to be confused with John Williams. All right. Yeah, I'm going to put this up because it's kind of me eating my own words. Sound Engraver says, you need to put yourself out there. Also, Sound Engraver, I met my husband online. Life is good. Get off the internet. Get off the internet right now. Yeah. Although yeah, I am a homebody, but like my work is teaching all sorts of people during the week. So when I'm home, I've talked to maybe it could be between 10 and 30 people depending on the day. And so I'm like, whew, I need a break. And that was actually before I met Professor Geek, during COVID and stuff. I was still teaching in the physical classroom. Ace says, watch the Donner cut of the second film, superior to the theatrical release. I'll have to confirm with Prof if he has that. Andreas says, the one thing I appreciate about Secret Origin is that it summarizes Superman and Lex Luthor's duality really well. I think so. Clark is optimistic, Lex is cynical. Clark is selfish, Clark is selfless, Lex is selfish. Clark has superpowers while Lex still is powerful. He has powers. He has cunning, and he has his genius and his technology and his resources. I mean, he has a lot to throw at Superman. Clark doesn't see himself as a god, even though he has godlike powers, while Lex sees himself as a god, but obviously doesn't have superhuman powers. This story is almost perfect in showing why Superman's Joker is Lex Luthor. Yeah, and as far as the dichotomy, yeah, for sure. Yeah, like Joker is that total antithesis of Batman. Yeah, I see it. And them knowing each other since childhood in Smallville is a nice touch. I like how Birthright and Secret Origin have different explanations for why Clark wears glasses. Oh yeah, I loved the reason for Secret Origin because he's trying to control his heat rays. Is that what you call them? Heat rays? I don't know. It comes from Ma Kent decided to engineer his glasses, like make his glasses out of the ship, I think, and that will protect that will kind of just like reflect and like dissipate any of that energy, and I think that's perfect. Yeah, and what both books had right was how Clark Kent should look, and that was the input of Ma and Pa Kent. Like, okay, you need to behave this way. You need to look this way. You need to wear glasses. People can't recognize you as Clark Kent. All right, Ghost Planet is you have fifth. Excuse me. What are you saying? I gotta get going. You guys have a wonderful rest of the weekend. You too, Ghost Planet. Before I go, my birthday is on the 15th. Well, we'll be streaming before then, and you're 31 years old. 31 was great. 30 is great. I'm 37. I have loved being in my 30s. I look forward to 40, but like I just kind of want to hold on to my 30s just for a little bit longer. Yeah. And I tell you, like I feel the change coming. Like, dang it, I'm like, I try to do like a roundhouse kick in the living space here. I'm like, oh, my bones. I'm not as flexible as I used to be. But that's because I haven't been stretching. I need to I need to exercise more and stretch more. Oh, Andreas Hernandez. Okay. Oh, so you're asking Professor Geek. So you're asking what are your thoughts on the David Goyer introduction in Secret Origin? I didn't bother reading it. Now, actually, I read the Darwin Cook introduction to Long Halloween, and I think Wait, was it Darwin Cook also for I think it was Kryptonite. I can't remember. Great introduction there. I think it was that actually that I remembered, but I didn't bother reading David Goyer. You know what he's, you know, anything he touches now, because he was working with the Asimov Foundation series and stuff, and I was just like, I don't, I didn't have the heart to. So, Andreas, he kind of does look like Harry Potter when he wears the glasses in Secret Origin. Your birthday is Tuesday. You'll be 42 this year. Wow. Tuesday. Great. That's awesome. Well, happy birthday. Birthday's coming up all around. It's Alyssa's birthday today. It's not today. But yeah, we have Alyssa's birthday this month. Lots of family. I have nieces coming on different years. It's crazy. This year though has been long. Samuel Meyer. We have 2 Samuels in the house now. Oh, hey, what I miss? You missed a lot of good stuff. Superman Secret Origin. I didn't show all the comics. I just kind of showcased some art and talked about some stuff. All right. And Spidey Rules confirms that the explanation for his glasses came from the Silver Age. Cool. I heard that Silver Age is really the age for Superman, so looking forward to it. So I think that's probably everything I'll say now. We had so much fun talking about Superman. I might talk about Star Wars next week. Fatal Alliance. Not. I mean, I have a lot. I've enjoyed a lot of this book. This was a great book. If you're into EU, I recommend this book. I loved all the characters. The situation, the plot was really tense. I don't think I've ever felt such intensity regarding the Star Wars plot. There's a little bit of thriller, just the barest minimum of what could have been horror, but it's not horror, but it's involving these deadly droids. It was pretty much knocked me off my seat. It was good. I appreciated a lot of it. So maybe I'll talk about Fatal Alliance next time, or Star Wars in general. But yeah, I'm trying to read a lot. Like I'm trying to absorb a lot of reading. I'm getting into Tales of the Jedi now, the radio drama, and then another Jedi comic, and then probably one possible further novel. But I do have to get into more fall stuff and Halloween stuff, so I might give Star Wars a little bit of a break. So yeah, happy birthday in the coming weeks to Brian, and then also to Ghost Planet. That's cool. All right. So I think we'll end it there. I need to talk a little bit just real quick about some things. I guess just keep tabs on Sunday live streams. It's been pretty busy with me with teaching. I'm getting a lot more students, which is great. But it has really, teaching is awesome, and I'm so grateful for it. I have almost up to 30 students, and that's before the returning of students before the school year. So I'm anticipating even more students, and that can actually, it's wonderful. The income's great, but it can really take up some of my creative time. So I've been really, if I'm not reading and I'm not writing or playing the game just to relax from it all, I'm still concentrating on getting music out there. So I'm working really hard on my album. And so really, I will say, as they used to say when I was in 6th grade, my YouTube channel will be mostly on the down low or on the DL, because I just have to concentrate on getting some music out there, getting some science fiction out there. I'm trying to finish this short story. I was talking to Professor earlier. I was like, I need to finish this ending of this short story because it's getting to be the point where it's almost like 6,000 words. I'm like, this is not a short story. So I'm trying to cut it off with a good solid ending, and then he'll look over how to, cut some of it down. There are some things that I have to just kill my darlings, kill the scenes, and just make it a really strong, impactful short fiction, because I'd like to publish. I don't know if it's going to be this year. I tried to make it this year, but I'd like to publish at least 5, maybe 5, between 5 to 7 short stories just in one compilation of science fiction, because it's very important to me to keep reading and to keep writing. And it's good stuff. So that's all. I think that's all I have to say. So let me see if I can. I'm just going to scroll over some comments for the final time before we get into that 2-hour mark, right? But thanks, guys, for all your contributions in the chat. I know you guys like Superman. You probably know way more about Superman than me. This is just me looking at these comics for the first time and giving my impressions. And even though my forte is music, that's my specialty, I do like to talk about art in different forms, different different media. That's what I mean to say. So we'll leave it at that until I see you next. Keep producing, preserving, and promoting that good art that you love. Take care.